I would love to see more equity in Hoboken. When I first came here over 40 years ago, it was a much more diverse community than it is. Ironically, we artists were kind of, unbeknownst to us, we created this desirable community that raised property value and made it a place where wealthy people wanted to come and live. And that gentrified Hoboken and forced people out. And if there were any way to make Hoboken more diverse again, that would be wonderful.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Change with Ron Bautista. Today we're going to have a conversation with everyday people about the change they want to see in their communities. Today we have the pleasure of having Liz Ndoye. Thank you, Liz, for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh, I'm so excited to have a conversation with you. We kind of already had an intro conversation right now. So, funny thing, I don't know if you remember, the first time we met was you were getting your hair done. Right?
Embarrassing moment, yes.
No, not at all. You were going to get married, I think, the next day. Or
Could
that
be.
day. I think so.
Could be.
Yes, and so I went to that salon because somebody told me an Ecuadorian is an owner at that salon.
Oh, you'd never met?
I had never, no.
Oh.
And so I went there because I was running for mayor in 2017,
Yes.
Hoboken.
Yep.
And I went to meet her. I met her niece, and then you were getting your hair done. So I was talking with you, and we just stayed in touch after that. But
Yes.
So that's how we met back in the day.
That's a great story. I mean, I've known Rosie Torres for over 20 years.
Wow.
And she is a pillar of this community. You might want to interview her one day.
Yeah.
Because she's got an incredible story to tell.
I was actually talking to the Hoboken Museum, and I was mentioning to them because they had the Hispanic Heritage Month event on Saturday, and they were taking a tally of how many Ecuadorians, how many Puerto Ricans, and they were saying, like, you know, it's interesting, there's a lot of Ecuadorians that signed up that went to the event.
Bravo.
And I did mention that we have a history as Ecuadorians here in Hoboken from the 60s, 70s that lived here in the city that I would love to. There's still some people that now they have their grandchildren that are, you know, a police officer, for example, here in Hoboken.
Her daughter is a police officer in Hoboken.
There you go. So I think it's about preserving those stories. I'm going to connect Rosie, I'm going to connect Leonardo Campoverde with the museum to see how we can get a bit of a history of Ecuadorians in Hoboken.
Do it.
Yeah, because that's part of it is telling our stories because they just have all the knowledge.
I would love to see that.
Yeah. So
Thank
that's
you for
be
doing
great.
that.
Yeah.
Anything I can do to help, let me know.
Of course, and just I get too excited, so we just kept talking. But you're an activist locally. You're an artist.
Yes.
You're a teacher.
Yes.
You promote. And you promote. There's so much that you do in the community. I don't know where to begin, but maybe we can start with how long have you lived in Hoboken?
Well, I came here in 1979, so over 40 years ago now. Very long time, almost my entire adult life.
And where do you live in Hoboken? Always in the same place?
I've always lived in the same place. I live on Garden Street between 3rd and 2nd Street. I love my home. My first, now deceased husband, Donald Cohen, was a very smart man, and he literally walked the streets of Hoboken. He had wanted to live either in Newark or Hoboken. And he walked around Newark, he walked around Hoboken. he fell in love with Hoboken because there were a lot of young families renovating their homes, and he started talking to people, and then he was attracted to our particular block because it seemed to be so active, and there were so many young families establishing themselves there. And he found this house that was incredibly fire damaged. He bought it for next to nothing. It took us over 10 years to renovate it, and I've lived there ever since.
It's great. And
been lucky.
And you're an artist. How did that begin?
Oh gosh.
We have time. Let's do it. Let's do it.
That's a really long story, but always loved art. My second grade teacher, Mrs. Barugi, gave me my first watercolor box. I guess she saw something in me, and the rest is kind of history. I've been doing art ever since. I had an uncle who was a commercial artist, and he encouraged me. And I've been doing it ever since. I majored in art I went to Douglas College, Rutgers University, right here in the state of New Jersey, majored in studio art. I went to UC Berkeley and majored in studio art and got my teaching credential in art and started teaching and practicing my art.
What kind of art do you do?
I do all kinds of art. I paint, I sculpt, I do photographic and digital art, the whole gamut.
And do you teach all of that, or do you have a particular area that you like to teach?
Well, I teach a smattering of everything, but at the moment, I mean, my professional life was teaching young children, grades kindergarten through 6th grade, but at the moment I'm delighted to be working with adults, and I work at the Hoboken Public Library, I work at the Hoboken Shelter, I work at St. Matthew's Lunchtime Drop-In Ministry, and I teach a variety of media and a variety of different art history eras and artists, and I like to give people a wide range of things to do and learn about.
So you teach at the library, right?
I do.
You teach at the shelter as well?
I do.
Tell us about the experience.
And also the multi-service center.
Oh, and a multi-service center.
Yes.
Yes.
All adults at this point.
What can you tell us about those different experiences of teaching art in those different settings for adults?
Sure. I teach every Wednesday morning at the Hoboken Public Library. It's kind of cool now. It's what they call hybrid. So I teach live on YouTube. I teach in person at the library in their beautiful renovated basement space.
Yeah.
But my technique is the same for all my classes. I like to start by focusing on a particular artist and a particular period of art history. During Latino Heritage Month, I like to focus on Latino and Latina artists, for example. Today we looked at a new, young, up-and-coming artist named Alba Palermo, and we're inspired by that particular artist's work. We discuss it, we look at it, and then we do work either in the technique of that artist or in the style of that artist. And I'll do that even with my students at the shelter. So I work with what I call my transitional artists. They are primarily homeless guests at the shelter every Monday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. And it's the same approach. We'll look at artwork by an artist, we'll discuss it, we'll talk about why we like it or don't like it, and then I'll have an art project based on this artist's life's work. And then they'll proceed to do that, or they'll sit there and talk to me. Sometimes they'll just meditate, or sometimes fall asleep. It's a wonderful experience. And it's the same process wherever I teach, at LTM or at the multi-service center.
How many students do you have at the shelter?
It varies, particularly at the shelter. I can have anywhere from 4 to 10 students in a class. At LTM, it could be 3 people, it could be 10 people. People come and go. I can have students, the same students for months at a time, and then they disappear, and I'll get a whole new group of people. My students at the library and the multi-service center, I have groups of up to 20, and I've had the same students now for about 5 years. I've been doing this for the last 5 years of my retirement.
And was it at St. Matthew's also that you did?
St. Matthew's lunchtime, I call that LTM.
LTM,
Lunchtime Ministry. Yes, so that is also my transitional students. So they are either housed, but the folks who come to LTM for food and social services, or unhoused folks who come there for food. And LTM is one of my favorite places in Hoboken. It's run by a young man named Spike Ensweiler. And you walk into LTM and it's like the dining hall at a college. Everybody's sitting around talking. It's one of the friendliest places in Hoboken. Anybody can come and you get fed. There's free coffee. They supply people with socks, toiletries, underwear. It's just a wonderful place to be. So people float in and out. Sometimes there's up to 80 people there. Sometimes it's very quiet and there are just a few people. But it's just a very welcoming, friendly place to be. And for folks who live on the street, it's a haven. It's a safe environment to be in, and a place where they can feel human and be respected.
I think that's important is the humanity of people and how much the environments set up the conversations, the interactions that we have, in this case with the homeless population, right? With the homeless people and how, you know, I love how you're working with art and they can use that time and however, like without pushing, it's just like however they feel that inspires them or that motivates them or how they want to interact with your class. But I believe that there's not enough activities like that, or that we need more spaces like that.
I agree.
And complement it with other, I'm not sure how many more activities there are for them. I used to tell, there's just many issues with the way we address homelessness, not just in Hoboken, but I feel like in regional, nationally.
Yep.
You know, the fact that, you know, sometimes they take away a bench because, you know, usually that's where
somebody sleeps.
When you're not really solving the issue, you're just making it harder for that person, and you're not really addressing what's going on in that person's life and how we can be better as neighbors, as a society. I used to tell, somebody was saying like, oh, you know, like a lot of homeless people come from Hoboken. I'm like, well, if I was homeless, I would like to be homeless in Hoboken because it's a safer place where I can be outside.
Right.
So but also that means that we need to see it holistically across the region to be able to address this, and it doesn't get solved just with having 1 or 2 social workers, but really having a full strategy on how to address this. So I thank you for sharing that, and if you know you have more experiences about that, you tell us about it.
One of my dreams, long-held dreams, is to have an art space where people can come and go, have their own space where they can work, they can leave work and come back to it. There's a place in Los Angeles on Skid Row. There's a street in Los Angeles literally called Skid Row, and there's an art center where people can come and go. They have lockers where they keep their art supplies. They can leave their work on an easel, work on it for a little bit, leave and come back, so that they know they have this creative space that's available to them whenever they need it. And, you know, this is a basic human need. And it's a need that I see amongst all the population in Hoboken. So this could be space shared not only by these folks in transition, but the rest of the Hoboken population, who I work with as well, who are craving the arts. So we really need some kind of public art space, open and available to everyone. And over the years, I've been promised certain places, but nothing really has ever come to fruition. Now they're talking about in this new municipal building that's probably going to be built uptown on 14th Street that possibly we could have public access to art space there. So I'm hoping. I mean, the multi-service center is the closest thing so far that I've been able to use as public access space. I welcome the artists in transition to come there. Every once in a while they'll stop in. I don't know how comfortable they feel. I think they feel comfortable amongst the rest of the population of Hoboken, but they'll come for a few classes and then they don't seem to return. So there needs to be a critical mass. There needs to be enough numbers of all kinds of people in the space to make it welcoming for everyone.
You know, that's why I love the concept of the library, right? And not just this library, but anywhere I go, I love going to the libraries. When I went to Flushing one time, I was like, oh, I gotta find the library. And I went, and like you said, it's really that community space, that community hub.
It's the heartbeat.
Where anybody from any income, from any background, from any heritage can come and just enjoy that community space.
Right, and everyone's welcome.
Yes, yes. And what you mentioned about the arts space open for everyone, it reminded me a bit from, I don't know if you heard of the Coalition for Food and Health Equity.
No.
So it's with Dr. Legia Carter. Their work is amazing. They started during the pandemic, really delivering food for people in need. And they were working with local restaurants in Hudson County, and then expanded into New Jersey, other parts of New Jersey, to prepare food that's healthy food as well. So it's packaged. And the new model that they have now that they're starting, the first one was installed at the Hudson Pride Center in Jersey City. But basically it's a community fridge. You have the food packaged already, and there's no questions asked. You walk in, you grab, and you go. You're not handing down anything. You're just able to just grab what you need. And I think that's great because you don't know, there's no means testing. It's just, if you're in need,
you take it.
You take it. And I feel, and that's the same way that I see what you propose in terms of art is, I feel like we all need it. I feel like it became even more apparent during the pandemic how much we need art in our lives, how therapeutic, and food. So that's why I see that combination and that partnership. Maybe something that we can have both of those things is, and maybe that's why you gravitated into having those art classes at those places where they're providing food for people in need.
It's kind of evolved organically at Lunchtime Ministry at St. Matthew's. And it's been wonderful. It's really, for me, the highlight of my week, to sit at this table with people who are just simply enjoying themselves and doing something that enables them to get out of their headspace for a while and do something meaningful. And to have one-on-one conversation that's not critical, just,
talk.
an everyday conversation with another human being. And it's great for me, and I think it's great for the folks who are sitting with me.
That's powerful.
But I do, you said something earlier that really sparked something in my mind, and that is Hoboken is a wonderful place for homeless people to come. One thing that does, and that makes me very proud, I think it aggravates some people.
Yes.
I don't want Hoboken to become overwhelmed, though. I know that at the moment there's a huge influx of immigrants coming to Hoboken, and it concerns me that the services that we have here, although terrific, may be approaching a point where they're going to be overwhelmed. And we need more social workers. We need more mental health professionals. And I just want to put that out there.
And that's why, and I've mentioned it in past episode, that's why I'm running for county commissioner.
Yeah.
Because challenges like the ones we're facing need a regional view. The county government is able to access different kind of funding at the federal level because of the population it covers, rather than a smaller municipality like city like Hoboken. So there's different ways that this can be handled, and the more accountability there is in terms of what is the plan, how are we approaching it, and in an integrated way, not just in Hoboken, but across the different cities that make up Hudson County. So that way we can spread out the resources, spread out the work, and we don't exhaust only the resources for Hoboken, but many people may come from Jersey City in order to get services in Hoboken and vice versa. So it's a way to balance out that work and having those opportunities to serve people across the county, because it's not just a responsibility of the city, but it's a responsibility of the county government.
Bravo. It's another reason why I'm supporting you.
I appreciate you. You've been an activist also for environmental
Oh, good.
issues.
I was hoping you would get to.
Oh, of course. Of course. And
This is my real passion. Well,
I don't know which
art is
one.
here, and environment
is.
is.
I've seen them equally or more at one point than the other, but really, I see it the same.
We're in a climate crisis.
Yes.
And Hudson County at the moment is facing 3 major environmental justice issues. Can I talk about them now?
Yeah.
Number 1 is the New Jersey Transit fracked gas power plant proposed to be built in Kearney. It's only 1.5 miles from Journal Square, only 3 miles from Hoboken. That's the number 1 environmental justice issue. It will raise the level of CO2, methane, particulate matter in our environment, our already overpolluted environment, exponentially, tenfold. Very much against this proposed power plant. Number 2, the expansion of the New Jersey Turnpike. We don't need it. We do not need to widen the Turnpike. It will only bring more cars. More cars will bring more air pollution to an already too polluted environment.
And it won't solve traffic either.
And it will worsen traffic, and the traffic overflow will spill out into Secaucus, Jersey City, Newark, Hoboken, the already over-affected areas, Bayonne, all of the surrounding cities will get more car traffic, more congestion. It's only going to exacerbate an already terrible problem. Our governor is very much in favor of this proposal because he's saying we're going to move to electric cars. It's not going to happen overnight, Governor Murphy. So this is not a solution. Electric cars is not a solution to the problem. The third, and also very scary thing that Hudson County residents should be very concerned about, is the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission wants to build the 4th power plant in the Iron Band in Newark, where the air quality is so extremely bad. I don't know if you've ever been in the Iron Band. The other day I was in the Iron Band handing out pamphlets about this to people. I had to wear my mask, not because of the COVID, but because the air was so thick with pollution, I could not breathe. And they want to put another power plant there. It's insane. So these are folks who, they have a garbage incinerator, they have a sewage treatment plant, they have the abattoir, they have Covanta power plant. It's unconscionable. And that power plant will affect our air quality as well. So the people of Hudson County need to be aware of these issues, and they're not. I don't know why. But particularly this New Jersey Transit power plant, we should be rising up, and screaming loudly against it. I'm proud to say that the Hoboken City Council unanimously voted against this power plant. But you know, we're one tiny community. Brian Stack and his Board of Commissioners voted against the power plant, and the PVSC power plants voted. Hoboken voted against PVSC power plant and the Turnpike expansion, and so did Jersey City. But we need a huge outcry from the larger population of Hudson County. The mayor's caucus is very much against these proposed power plants, but we need more help.
We need the help at the state levels as well. And in terms of
where's Cory Booker?
And the legislators.
His beloved Newark. Come on. I call him almost daily and say, if you love Newark so much, please stop this power plant in your own city. And I've spoken to his staff members, and they say things like, well, he's at the federal level now. You know, talk to the governor, Cory. He's your friend.
Also, I mean, when the pressure was on local governments like the county government to stop the contracts with ICE and stop jailing immigrants.
It's another one of
there were two components in order to stop that contract. It wasn't public outcry because we had 9 hours of public speakers against it.
I was there.
Our representative completely ignored it. But really the two components that really helped was one, Trump was coming out of office, and then also that means there were going to be less, raids, right? So then there was less people in the county jail. So they saw the number of money that was coming into the county from those contracts go down. So they were like, is it really worth the outcry from the public? And then when that happened, we had Cory Booker and Senator Menendez, both senators, made an appearance, and they said we shouldn't have that. The county board of commissioners, they were so upset that it was like, why would you come and talk against this and against us? So there is that involvement that can happen at that senator level, that they can speak up to a local issue like this that impacts their constituents. I think that we need more legislators at the state levels also.
Well, I will
to
shout
this.
out to Angela McKnight, Annette Chaparro, Mukherjee, Assemblyman Mukherjee. They have been supportive of our efforts as well. I wish, they're doing what they can. I always wish for more, but they're kind of waiting on the Essex County people to be more definitive. I mean, the Essex County folks should be taking the lead on this, and no one wants to step on other people's toes.
And I think
this is politics.
That's the biggest issue. Is it depends on where their power comes from, right? And a lot of these struggles really come down to everyday people versus the politicians, because the politicians that are in power usually depend on a party boss, right? A political party boss. And when they have to answer to them more than their constituents, that's when the balance of power really breaks. So that's when we have to step in and start challenging those bases of power.
Yes. I agree.
For the energy transit plan, I thought at one point we were kind of out of the woods with the power plan. What happened in between? Because
Actually, Governor Murphy, and this was almost a year ago, Governor Murphy told New Jersey Transit, you have to come back with a greener plan, because we were so vocal and we were so noisy that even he realized something had to be done. But they listened to Governor Murphy only up to a point, and they came back to us with a new plan, which was almost exactly the same as the old plan. And they have now put out a call for bids in which they require a natural gas power plant. So we're back. Yeah, we're back to square one. We're back to square one.
When did this happen? The bid?
Well, it's happening now. So we're in a time crunch with the New Jersey Transit.
I'm glad that we had this conversation so we can push
I
for that
am too,
even
because
more.
I want people to realize how imminent this is.
Yeah, and we are already a region that has such high cases of asthma, and asthma on kids, asthma on adults. There's a reason why our allergies are getting worse and worse every year. It happens to me. I used to have allergies only in the spring. Now I have them in the fall as well. It has to do with that air pollution that we have currently right now, and that is only getting worse.
Well, and there are studies and reports now that actually prove scientifically that people who live in urban areas are more affected by air pollution than any other people in the United States. So black and brown people, environmental justice communities are the ones who are being most affected by this. People in Jersey City, Hoboken, Newark, Secaucus, Kearney, Bayonne. Us and our neighbors are the ones who are always dumped on. It happens over and over and over again. We're nicknamed Cancer Alley for a reason. We are parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, because this is where industry always comes to build. They think that people are going to put up with it. We're not going to put up with it anymore.
You've also been an activist for women's rights, and especially in the last few years, I've seen you extremely active.
Yes, Donald Trump actually re-energized myself and a lot of the women in my age group. We were getting complacent there for a while. The major loss of Hillary Clinton was a shock, huge shock. I remember crying and crying and crying. The day I walked in, actually, the day after Trump was elected, I walked into my class at the library and literally started crying in front of my students because it was a terrible moment for myself and many of the women that I know. And yeah, so my activism for women's rights came alive. I mean, it never died, but it kind of was rejuvenated at that point. I'm proud to say Hoboken, with the help of Jerry Fallow and myself and another friend, Barbara Gross, we organized 4 or 5 buses, Barbara. 5, I think it was 5 buses from Hoboken alone went to Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
So that was a proud moment.
Amazing.
Another march on October 8th, everybody, in D.C.
Oh.
I don't know if I'm going to go to D.C. for this one or to New York, but we will march.
Having them spread out. I mean, we had the Black Lives Matter also march here in Hoboken.
Yes, that was thrilling.
That was huge.
Kudos to Hoboken for doing it and doing it well, I thought.
Yeah. No, I think that people needed that. We were all frustrated, and I feel like now it's also about following through and really not keep it as part of just Hoboken history, but for it to actually build. So we have challenges here in terms of inequality, right, in Hoboken and in Hudson County. And
you think? Absolutely.
You and I know that.
Yeah.
And we see it more every day. And I think, some people think, there's a lot of young professionals here, it's okay. I mean, young professionals are also getting their rent hiked by 30%. And, there's a lot more that can be done in order to prevent something like that. There are more people that are struggling than we think. And sometimes that blanket statement of higher income in Hoboken makes us not see that there's huge inequalities here, and if we don't address them, it's just going to keep getting worse. And I was mentioning to you off camera that I used to clean homes in Hoboken with my mom after my dad had ALS and he got sick. And what I saw when I was working with those families is like they were able to relate to me more, or to immigrants, because they actually knew one, right? And I was a bit more vocal about it. I think we have to continue to have those conversations so that more and more people feel like, actually it's not comparable. I always say it's not to compare my situation with yours. It's for it to be relatable, and for us to be able to see that we shouldn't be fighting over the crumbs. We should really be working together so that we can all grow. We can all be better as a community.
What helps one person helps all people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Before we go to the conversation with the audience, I want to make sure I provide you some space and some time to say. We spoke a lot about the change, but just to sum up, what change do you want to see in your community, in our community?
I would love to see more equity in Hoboken. When I first came here over 40 years ago, it was a much more diverse community than it is. Ironically, we artists were kind of, unbeknownst to us, we created this desirable community that raised property value and made it a place where wealthy people wanted to come and live. And that gentrified Hoboken and forced people out. And if there were any way to make Hoboken more diverse again, that would be wonderful. I see more diversity lately than I have in maybe the last 5 to 10 years, but it's pretty much a homogeneous town at the moment, and that makes me sad. So that's a change. I don't know how you make that happen naturally, but I would love to see it happen. I see people of color in Hoboken are being forced further and further westward. I see in Jersey City, I don't know what you call the section of Jersey City where the David Bowie mural is. That's become so gentrified. It's like a whole nother world. And folks there are being pushed out. Where are those people going to go? So we need to return to a time where there is affordable housing, where everyone is welcome, and we stop the overdevelopment that's going on. You know, I commend the efforts that are being made to prevent Hoboken from flooding ever again, to keep Hoboken the historic, beautifully historic and picturesque city that it is, but there has to be a way to maintain the historic preservation and yet keep it a vibrant, culturally exciting place, not a whitewashed cardboard facade kind of community. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Let me know if I'm seeing it correctly. It's for it not to just be the facade of the buildings, but the people that make up.
Right. I want
the
real
community.
people to live here, not just people on their way to another job or the house in the suburbs.
You want a community.
Right. I want people who come here to put down roots. There are more people like that. I see more people staying with their children, but when I first came here, that was the goal. Everybody's goal was to come here to raise their kids. No matter if you had 3 or 5 kids or just one child, you came here to stay. And you came here to help your neighbors. We had vibrant block associations where people worked together, where we had all different kinds of people on our block, and everybody knew each other. But that period of Hoboken seems to have passed.
Something that I've seen, the more involved I've become, especially now in local politics and just in the community, the more that I'm getting that feel that you mean in terms of you get to know more your neighbors. I guess because since I'm passionate about many issues in Hoboken, I have to talk to more people.
Right.
And then I see them on the street, and then I'm speaking to the parents of the students from my daughter Sophia's school, right? And then it just keeps growing that when I'm walking on the street now, I'm starting to see more familiar faces. And I think it's about disrupting that 9 to 5, I'm going to my job, I just see my friends. It's me talking to the neighbor and be like, hey, I just moved in, and having those conversations. I feel like we need to do a bit more of that in order to break the ice and start building that community. You mentioned an important point, which is affordability. I mean, even I worked a certain way in order to have a good job. The struggle is real throughout that process to get to that good job. But even then, I see that, it's like how does a former undocumented immigrant is able to afford to continue to live here if we only leave it to market rate properties, and we don't have nonprofit housing as well built in Hoboken. I mean nonprofit in terms of affordability,
right.
Something that is not market rate, because we've been getting plenty of market rate, and there is a supply thing, right, that helps, but really we cannot leave it only to trickle down housing. I feel like we have to also address that issue with more nonprofit apartment units, and something that we need, that we all struggle with at some point. I mean, there's a reason why we go to the school district, because that's part of us pooling our resources together so that we can have our children go there instead of having to pay for a private school. I mean, that to me is college money, and college is another topic that we can talk about, and
Not my problem anymore. Sorry, Ron.
That I'm gonna have to deal with.
That is one positive indicator about Hoboken at the moment, is the public schools have improved immeasurably since when I first came here. So that is the sign of an improving community. I'm glad you brought that up.
I always tell people when I went to Hoboken High School, I graduated in 2004, we had one debate team, and we went to Boston for that Harvard Model Congress. And now the high school has 3 debate teams. It has mock trial, it has Model UN, and it has Harvard Model Congress. And I think 2 years after us, they went to Barcelona for Harvard Model Congress. So it's getting better. I think the parent involvement and the involvement of the public is going to just make it even better.
Yeah.
But I do see that improvement, and I do give a shout out to the teachers and to the students, because when I've gone to see the students, they're way ahead of what we were when we were in Hoboken High School back in that time.
And I think that also speaks to the fact that people are moving here to stay. They're more committed to their school system, more invested in making sure their kids are getting educated. So,
and I think we need more.
That's a good sign.
We need more of those stories of those alums from Hoboken High School to
come back and talk about.
Be able to talk about how that impacted their lives. And I know plenty of people who graduated with me, or maybe a few years after myself, that ended up doing great things. I mean, this barbershop is from a Hoboken alum.
It's a very cool place.
And it's he built it himself. So there's a lot of inspiring stories, something that we have to highlight. But thank you so much, Liz.
Oh, my pleasure.
I appreciate your voice. I appreciate, and please, everybody, a round of applause for Liz. Thank you so much.
And here's a round of applause for Ron.
Thank you.
I love the whole concept of doing these. So, thank you.
Thank you, and we'll continue those conversations.
Absolutely.